The bending of a beam is associated with curvature, right? So, to wrap up this concept, right, and then formulate the element, I think, why are we taking this pause to think here? Because the idea of finite elements is to formulate each of the elements, right, within that general concept of building the set from understanding each part. And for you to formulate the spring element, you needed to know the spring theory, except the spring theory starts and is already over. F equals K times delta, right? Which is Hooke's law. We use the spring for a much larger concept. Then we use the truss, which was a spring whose elastic constant was EA over L, right? And it's just that the truss was very important for us to understand the broader concept on coordinate transformation, right? Because when you build the stiffness of the structure, starting from the stiffness of each element, you are summing forces, right? Since the spring constant is a force associated with a unitary displacement, now we are studying the beam element, and the beam element exhibits four behaviors that coexist. That is axial force, bending in one plane, bending in the other plane, and torsion. However, they are independent from one another. Within the realm of linear analysis, these four phenomena coexist together, and one has nothing to do with the other. One does not interfere in the other's life. We will talk about this again, right? Basically, establish the conditions for small deflections, the conditions of linear analysis. That's why we are studying separately. The axial behavior of a beam has already been studied. It is a spring with a constant of E times A over L. The stiffness matrix of a single bar solely under axial load is E times A over L, E times A over L, minus E times A over L, minus E times A over L. Like a spring, it is KK minus K and minus K. That's the condition. Is that right or not? We've already discussed that. Now, the beam element has allowed us to have our first contact with an element where all four behaviors coexist. Since we've already studied axial behavior, we are now studying bending behavior. That's what's important.